Howdy folks, Bluesboyjag here with yet another 3-string cigar box guitar lesson. Today, it's slide. How to play slide. Where do my fingers go? How do you make noises? How do you not make noises? How do you keep everything nice and quiet and accurate? We're going to go over all those things today. I'm using a 3-string cigar box guitar tuned to open G. So that's an A string tuned down to G for your big one. That's a D string tuned normal to D for your second one. And your first string is a G tuned normal to G. So first we're going to go over fingering positions. So I'm going to take, for an example, the 5th fret right here. And I'll show you exactly where that slide should go. I'm using it on the 3rd finger because that's what I prefer. Notice how that first finger is touching the 1st and 2nd and 3rd strings. The 2nd finger is not, but the slide is. So the 1st finger and the slide are touching the strings. And the reason I do this is because if you have a lot of distortion on your guitar and you don't partially mute the strings behind the slide, you'll get a whole lot of overtones. In fact, what you'll end up hearing is notes between the nut and where the slide is. That's half of a guitar. Let's say your slide's right here. Well, from the nut to that point is half of your guitar, and from this point all the way up to the end of the guitar is the other half of the guitar, or the other half of the neck, I should say. So what I'm getting to here is a lot of overtones get in the way, which means when you're playing slide, especially with distortion, and especially if the volume is somewhat loud, you're going to hear all sorts of overtones between the nut, which is right here, and my slide, but you're also going to hear overtones from the slide all the way up to the bridge, which is way back here. So in order to keep all those overtones to a minimum, I use my 1st finger and I slide on that as well. So I'm sliding on the 1st finger. My 1st finger is touching the strings but not pressing down, so it's muting them. And then the slide is also sliding on the strings. So my finger is sliding on the strings, my 1st finger, and the slide is sliding on the strings. So if I crank up the distortion pretty high, then you'll hear all sorts of overtones. So I'm going to crank up the tone and the distortion a bit. And I'll show you what this sounds like. So if I go to the 5th fret, right here, now I'm at the 12th fret. So when you play slide, especially at high volumes, I've got my phone in my hand, so I can't pick with that hand right now. So to keep all those overtones from making lots of noise, I use my 1st finger to partially mute the strings. The 2nd finger is not touching the strings at all. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have at least one finger touching the strings, it keeps all those overtones out. So if you play a harmonic, if you're familiar with harmonics, there's harmonics all up and down the fretboard. Those harmonics are going to come through the amplifier, especially if you have a lot of distortion and if the volume is rather loud. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. In order to keep those weird noises getting out of the way and muted, then I use my 1st finger behind the slide. So let's say I want to slide to this fret right here. So I slide up, and I'm actually sliding my 1st finger, or muting I guess I should say, on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd string. It also helps to stabilize my slide and my hand. So I'm using my thumb also behind the neck. So if I want to get a nice clean tone, and I'm going to be picking, let's say, the 1st string or the 2nd string, then I use my 1st finger and my 2nd finger behind the slide to keep all the overtones down. My pinky is sort of touching the slide there. So the other thing that happens here is that first finger is balancing, or I guess I should say it's kind of slowing down my finger. So I'm not going to go. All I want for vibrato is just a little bit, like that right there. So I'm kind of moving the slide, I don't know, what is that, maybe 1/4 of an inch up and down. That's my slide vibrato. Well, I don't want it to go. So that's why I use my thumb to stabilize, and also my first finger to stabilize the slide. So if you look at it from this angle, all the fingers are touching each other, which keeps the strings from making too much noise and keeps my hand from sliding all over the place. And also my thumb slows down the slide. So it gives me basically more control. So if I want to slide from, say, the 3rd fret right to the 5th fret and stop on the 5th fret instead of going too far, then my thumb slows it down and my 1st and 2nd finger slows it down. So you get way better control. A lot of people play slide for about 30 seconds and they say, this is ridiculous, I give up, and they never pick it up again. But if you practice using this technique, it really makes it a lot easier. Sorry, I can only play with one hand right now because I'm holding the phone. But I wanted you to see that angle of where my fingers are. I use the 3rd finger for my slide. I don't really know why, except that I started doing that years and years ago. Nobody where I lived could teach me how to play slide, so nobody had any specific input on that. So I thought, well, I've seen other people use it on the 3rd string, and I'm figuring I can probably finger some of these notes. So I ended up putting it on my 3rd finger. In reality, a lot of people actually use their 2nd finger so they can fret with the 1st and 3rd. But I'm not too good at that because I've been doing this for 40 years this way. So anyway, you hear all these overtones here. And I just thought I'd show you that from my vantage point. So if I want to go up to the 12th fret, I want to go here. I don't want to go here. You don't want to go in the middle of the fret. You want to be right on top of it. So the 12th fret is right there, not in the middle. So the slide goes right over this fret right here. So if I want to go down to, say, the 5th fret, I'm going to be right on top, right here with the slide. And the 3rd fret, and so forth. So I will do another lesson where I have the phone anchored so I can show you more tricks and so forth. But I was just thinking I'm going to do one more lesson tonight, and I had been thinking about doing this lesson, so I thought I'll just do this real quick and show some people the other side of the slide. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.